Look at that. Looks like a big S30. Hey everyone, John Reed here from Learn to Stargaze. It's finally here, the S50 Pro, and I got to test it. Well, sort of, but I'll get to that in a minute. And yes, ZWO did send me this unit for me to test, but this video is not technically sponsored, and as always, I'm free to provide my honest opinions about the experience. That said, this is really exciting, and I can tell from the comments in my other videos that people have been waiting for this telescope for a long time. In fact, I've been waiting for a smart telescope with these specs since I received my original S50 back in 2023. The original Seestar was an amazing achievement, but I always felt they were holding back with such a small sensor, the Sony IMX462, a sensor typically used in planetary imaging cameras. This meant that this original Seestar, when it came out before mosaic mode, covered only a very small area of the sky, not even enough to capture the entire Orion Nebula. Well, not anymore. The Seestar S50 Pro with the new Sony IMX585 sensor, the same sensor from the S30 Pro, covers almost 4 times as much sky as the original S50. And according to ZWO, pretty much every other aspect of the telescope has been upgraded as well, from the tracking to the optical performance. So given that the S30 Pro and the S50 Pro have the same sensor, you might wonder if that extra 20 millimeters of aperture is worth it. It is. Light collection grows with the square of the aperture, meaning that the S50 collects almost 3 times more light per second. Now, because both telescopes are about f5, that extra 3 times light gathering spreads over 3 times as many pixels. So the surface brightness stays the same, but the detail you're able to resolve will almost double. This will make a very noticeable difference on targets such as the Veil Nebula, where you really want those fine details to pop out. I'm also really excited about the Milky Way photography feature, where you can fix the landscape in place, and the star trails feature, where you can stop tracking altogether. Now, the Seestar's main competitor, Dwarf Lab, has some of these features as well, but I still need to test those to see how they compare. All right, here's my experience. So I just got back from viewing the total solar eclipse in Spain. And between the jet lag and the weather, I've only been able to test this for a couple hours over 3 nights. And the 3rd night I got clouded out right away, so technically 2 nights. The first night I ran into a bit of an issue. My plan was to simply set it down here in the city, no EQ mode, and just push it to the max with the default settings to see what would happen. Well, it did okay at first. I framed up a giant mosaic shot of the Veil Nebula. All was well for the first 23 minutes of exposures, taking 30-second exposures. And then it just stopped. It gave a warning that my exposures were too long, and that was it. So then I set the exposures to 20 seconds and went to bed. I checked in 5 hours later, and the same thing. It had stopped at 23 minutes. Anyway, I learned my lesson, at least for now. For mosaics, we should use either 10-second exposures or EQ mode. And really, EQ mode is the way to go. So on night 2, I had about 2 hours before it was supposed to cloud over, so I framed up the shot again, this time with a slightly tighter mosaic, and used 10-second exposures. I collected 38 minutes of data, and the results were pretty impressive. Here's the preview image. Now this is without any processing, just how it appeared on the Seestar screen. And here's the raw file processed in AstroWizard. Now this is just 38 minutes of exposure, and given how the Seestar constructs the mosaic, there's probably only about 10 minutes of exposure at any given part of the image. An image like this requires hours of exposure time to get right. So you can see the potential here. And of course, if you don't want to download the images to a PC, you can also use the Seestar's AI Enhance feature, which seems to work pretty good as well. I'm assuming they're not using generative AI here, and instead just automating the processing steps that you'd otherwise be doing yourself. Let me know in the comments what you think of in-app processing with AI. Another feature I tried but wasn't quite able to figure out was the plan feature. I wanted to start taking exposures but have it stop before the clouds rolled in. I didn't find this feature intuitive to use, but I'm sure others have figured it out, so I guess I'll just have to try it again. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a lot more with this telescope in the near future, so stay tuned. Speaking of smart telescopes, my latest book, The Ultimate Beginner Telescope Guidebook, has dozens of smart telescope targets. If you're in the USA, you can get free shipping on learntostargaze.com. If you're in Canada, the hardcover edition is distributed by All Star Telescope. And of course, the book is also available on Amazon, so be sure to leave a review to offset the jerks who one-starred this book before it was even officially published. Okay, one more announcement. If you've been following this channel for a while now, you'll know that since June of last year, I've been collecting submissions for an upcoming Smart Telescope book. You can go on our website and submit your images. If they get used in our book, you'll receive a complimentary copy. Now, the most obvious targets have been captured, but we're still missing some of the more obscure galaxies. Think the Whale and the Crowbar galaxies, as well as some of the more obscure nebula, such as the Witch's Head, Lobster, Prawn, and Cat's Paw Nebula. So if you'd like to capture these, ideally with at least an hour of exposure time, you'll have a chance to showcase your work in our upcoming book. Anyway, that's it for this video. Don't forget about our online astronomy club. We meet every Thursday night. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video, and remember, the future is looking up.